Have you ever wondered how you can create a future that's been different than your past? Especially when your past is all that you've known. How do you create something that's new and different? Well, that's precisely what we're going to be exploring on today's episode, about how you can create your future from the future on your way towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back for the ones who can't do that.
Hello there. Welcome to another episode. Lucky number 7. We're already to 7, you guys. Oh, my baby podcast is growing up. If you've already subscribed to the show, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I hope you are finding it valuable. I hope you're finding it helpful. It's the only reason why I'm doing it. So I hope that's what's happening. And if you're here for the first time, this is episode 7. And today we're exploring, something very tangible, something very useful, something that has completely revolutionized the way that I approach manifestation and is a core tenet of the way that I teach manifestation to my clients. And this is all about, what if you're wanting to manifest something? Okay, I'm sure you have something that you want to manifest right now, but it's brand spanking new to you. I mean, it is not part of what you are currently experiencing. It is not part of what you've experienced in the past. It is something brand new. You've always been one way, but now you want to be another way. And you don't feel like you know any other way. And so it's like, how can I go be something completely different when I've never done that before? Or maybe I don't even know what that looks like. That's what we're going to be exploring today. Because here's the thing, you can't create your future based on your past. Your past was created by a certain set of thoughts that you had that created the reality around you. So you cannot bring those same thoughts to the future and expect different results. You have to do something different. You have to think something different. If you think the same thing as your past, you're going to create the same thing as your past. So how do we create a new future? Well, we need to create the future from the future and then reverse engineer it. And so that's kind of like a little mind-boggling to think about, right? Like we have to kind of go out into the future, see what's there, and then realize like, okay, I'm at point A right now. Future is point B. How do I bridge the gap there? And the best way to do it is kind of like throw out your fishing rod into the future, catch something, and then reel that future in. I'm not a fisher woman at all, but that's the best kind of analogy I can use for it. We're going to cast our string. What is it called? Fishing rod. That's the word. We're going to cast our fishing rod out into the future. We're going to catch that future vision and we're going to reel that baby on in to our present so that we can embody it now. Sounds fun, right? I doubt it sounds easy, but that's okay. Learning how to do this will help you create a future version of yourself, and it virtually ensures that you'll get there. So here are 5 things that I like to do to reverse engineer my future into my present, into something that I can experience in 3D reality. The first thing that I would say is start from your results, start from your destination, your manifestation, and then work backwards. And here's how we can do that using coaching and the conscious mind. So let's just say, think of your manifestation as an example. I'm going to give you an example so you can kind of dig your teeth into this and understand it a little bit better. So I want you to think of your manifestation. For me, I'd love to manifest a big old vacation. I know I just got back from several vacations, but you can never have enough vacations. And a big old vacation I would love to manifest is going to Bora Bora again. So it's been about 6 years. So my husband and I went to Bora Bora for our honeymoon. We spent 9 days there. It wasn't 2 weeks. I think we spent about 9 days. And it was just the most magical. I don't think I've ever experienced peace and joy and pure relaxation. I wish I would have been into hypnosis back then, because it would have been a great place to do some hypnosis. It was so relaxing. And it was just, I mean, it was amazing. We stayed in one of those overwater bungalows. It looked like something straight out of Pinterest. We stayed at the St. Regis Bora Bora, the nicest hotel on the entire island. It was just, I mean, it was a dream come true. So I'm going to use that. I want to manifest that kind of trip again, right? I want to use that as my example as I'm explaining to you how you guys can manifest and reverse engineer from your future into your present so that your future becomes your present. So first, you want to get clear on the future result. Ask yourself, what do you believe is possible for you? And this question might actually produce a different answer than what you want to manifest. If you don't think it's possible for you, well, then I'm sorry. You're going to have to go back and listen to some of the other episodes that we had prior to this one that talks more about building up belief, because you're only ever going to manifest in the realm of your belief. It's kind of like your belief is like a rubber band. Okay. And so if it's really tight, and you try to stretch it, and it flings back at you, you're only ever going to be able to wrap that rubber band around however far it can stretch, right? And that might not hold all the pencils you want to rubber band together. I don't know. I'm kind of losing this analogy, but your belief is like the rubber band. And so if it's tight, you're only ever going to be able to hold as much as it can stretch. And that could limit what you can manifest, right? But what we have to do through hypnosis and conscious coaching and everything that I teach and show you here on this podcast, what you have to do is begin to stretch your belief, stretch that rubber band, stretch it out, get it nice and loose, because once it's looser, it can hold more when you try to tie it around things, right? And that's really what our belief is. So I want you to ask yourself, what do you believe is possible for you? Because however much your belief can stretch is what you'll be able to hold, what you'll be able to manifest into your life. And hypnosis is a good way to kind of stretch that belief, especially that manifestation audio, that free one that I have on my website is actually designed to help you build up belief. I'm going to mention it several times here today because it's actually going to be a really helpful tool for you guys to be able to feel into this future version of you. But you can go to BrittanyHoops.com/manifestation audio. It's free for you. It's a hypnosis audio. It's about 20 minutes long. It's golden. I use it every day. But I want you to ask yourself, what do you believe is possible for you here right now? So I do believe that I'll be able to go back to Bora Bora. I would say, what is in the realm of my belief? Do I think I'm going tomorrow? No, I don't believe that because it's a big trip and I have plans tomorrow and I don't believe I will be going tomorrow. So that's not in the realm of my belief. But do I believe I'll be able to go back in my 30s sometime? I'm in my young 30s right now. Do I think I'll go back in this decade sometime within this decade? Yeah, sure. I'm not sure how that will work out with growing my family and having kids and whatnot. It's not the most kid-friendly vacation, but I think I can swing, that trip sometime. I think sometime we could drop the kids off at grandma and grandpa's and then Steven and I could go off to Bora Bora. I do believe that that is something that could happen. So get clear on what you believe. Next, given this manifestation, given this result that you do believe, ask yourself, what actions do you need to take to get there? What would you need to do to have that future manifestation? Here we're getting into the action component of it, right? We have the results, and now we want to identify the actions that are required to get to those results. So for me, in this example, I would need to save up money, or I would need to actually kind of rearrange some money that I already have, set aside or rearrange money to make this trip happen. To have a trip like that, which it is like, for many people, a once in a lifetime trip. It's like a good 20K at least. It's an expense that we would have to determine, do we want to take that on? Is it good timing right now? Do we want to use our money in this way? Do we want to manifest more money for this trip? Do we want to manifest the trip in some other way? Maybe you could win it from a contest, or there's so many different ways it could come about, right? But we have to focus on what actions are underneath our control that feel inspired, that feel good to us, that would be able to help us manifest this trip. And so ask yourself, what actions would you need to take? And what resources do you have available to you that could help you with this? You may already have the resources, but do you want to utilize the resources in this way? Are there resources that you need to go out and get or create that are going to help you in the actions that you need to take? Again, we're reverse engineering this. To reverse engineer something is to have the end goal in mind and then figure out all the little steps that you had to take along the way. It's doing it backwards so that you can propel yourself forwards. You may have those resources now. You may need to go get the resources to be able to take your next step of your action. But the first step is just identifying what resources you need to have to begin with. So we know that all actions are fueled by emotions, are fueled by our feelings. They color our actions. They help motivate us or demotivate us to take action. They sort of like give our actions flavor. Say you want to work out. It could feel very different, that workout, if you're feeling grouchy, meh, complainy. We've all had those feelings before, right? Versus if you're approaching that workout feeling happy, motivated, determined. Again, this is the flavoring. The feelings are the flavor of your actions. Both are workouts, both have the same action, but are going to be two very different experiences based on the feelings, based on the emotions, based on the flavor that you're bringing to that action. So let's figure out what feelings are going to best fuel your actions, the actions that you just identified to get you towards that end result. How would you need to feel to take those actions? So for me, in this vacation example, I need to either save or rearrange some money for this trip, right? How would I need to feel to want to move forward and do this? I think I need to feel sure, resolute, like I need to feel confident, I guess you could say, but sure. Right now, I'm kind of like, I'm not sure if I want to spend this money on that right now, given some of the other goals. You could even say that in itself is a limiting belief. Why does it have to be either or? Maybe the trip could come about in some other way. So identify the feeling that's going to best fuel those actions. Now let's take it one step further. What causes our feelings? Think about it. What causes our feelings? Well, if you're thinking about it right now, you've got the right answer. It's your thoughts. It's your thoughts. So what thoughts would you need to think in order to create that emotion within you? What story do you have to start telling yourself about this manifestation? So I identified the feeling of like that sure feeling, that sort of like grounded confidence. If I wanted to feel sure, I'd have to start telling myself the story of we only ever have right now. Things always work out. There's more than enough to go around. I can have this and my other goals. I can enjoy this vacation and grow my family. It's not either or, it's and. I can have it all. I can do what feels good. I can trust that there's more to come. See how I'm just kind of like rambling? This is the best kind of rambling. This is really the only kind of rambling that does us any good, is to really kind of get on that roll, get on that rampage of the story, because we're so driven by stories. That's why I tell so many stories in this podcast. We love a good story, and we love to make stories out of our lives. We like to give our own lives this sort of narrative structure that makes sense. And so what story would you need to tell yourself that's going to create an emotion within you? Think about when you go to the movies, right? We go to the movies, we're giving our attention to the movie, which is basically just offering us thoughts. Anytime we're immersed in any sort of media, we're literally hypnotized by it. To have your whole mind, both conscious and subconscious, immersed into something is a form of hypnosis. And so you watch this movie, it's offering you thoughts, and then you think them, and then you start feeling emotions. It all comes back to the thoughts. And that's how we set up our dominoes, folks. We have the thought that creates the emotion, and those emotions, they're the flavor, right? They fuel our actions. And then those actions, when they're conducted with that emotion, they create the future. And so this is the equation. It's as logical as it comes. Okay, this is the equation, the way to reverse engineer your future. We started from the future and worked backwards, but you can see how if we went result action, emotion, thoughts, you could see how you actually need to start with thoughts, emotion, action, results. But that's how we were able to identify it and reverse engineer it. But at the end of the day, it all comes back to the thoughts. That's the very first step. I kind of like to think of our thoughts as kind of this we're on the analogy of movies, right? It's almost like a movie soundtrack playing in your mind. So what soundtrack does that future version of you, that version that has that manifestation, what soundtrack is playing in her brain? Let's go ahead and press play on that soundtrack right now, because those are the kind of thoughts that you're going to need to think in your present moment in order to create that future so that that future is eventually your present moment too. Here's another thing that I do to reverse engineer and ensure my future. I put those actions, those actions that we determined here, I put all those actions on my calendar. So I don't know if you're a Google Calendar girly. I don't know if you use a paper planner. I definitely was a planner girl back in middle school and high school and even some of college. I loved a good paper planner. Now I'm all digital. However you keep yourself organized, even if it's just sticky notes of a to-do list, you got to put those actions down. You got to get them somewhere that gets them into your daily routine. This isn't just some pipe dream like, oh, someday sort of thing. If it's someday, you'll manifest more someday. No, it's now. You know what actions you need to do. You got to slot them in. And here's why I love this. Because if you put them into your calendar, if you put them on your to-do list, if you put them into something that will create that action within you today, then you only have to do one thing. This ensures that if I stick to my calendar, all those dominoes that I set up will perfectly fall into place to create my future. It basically ensures that you're going to get the future that you want. Here's another thing to reverse engineer your future. You knew I was going to say this. I'm a hypnotherapist. You have to use hypnosis in many different ways, but I'll talk about some of the ways that you can use hypnosis. One of the most powerful ways to use hypnosis is to visualize and gain clarity into your future. And I'll tell you, I could talk about this all day and I don't want to get it too scientific or into the nitty-gritty for you, but there are all types of one-on-one hypnosis, hypnotherapy techniques that I use to help my clients with this. You really have to allow your subconscious mind to give you clarity on your desires, right? If you don't know the address that you're typing in to your Google Maps for your destination, how is Google Maps going to produce a route for you if you don't know what that is? You have to get clear on that. And so when we're in a state of hypnosis, again, similar to watching movies, it's almost like we're watching a movie in our mind. We're just sort of allowing it to happen to us. We watch the movie in our mind because we're tuned in, we're plugged into our subconscious mind. So rather than inventing something or trying to consciously create something, we're just watching the images, the sensations, the feelings that unfold. We're tapped into our imagination, to our intuition, to our creative problem-solving faculties. We have access to all these things when we're tuned into the subconscious. And I just love it. It's actually so incredibly helpful. I work one-on-one with so many creatives, actors. I have several author clients. And I love these kinds of sessions because they recognize how important it can be to use and tap into deliberately your subconscious mind. We utilize hypnosis in these sessions to help them write their books in the case of my authors. Or I've done, theater retreats before where we've used hypnosis to devise new theatrical shows and exercises. It's where our imagination resides. We don't have to force it. It just is free flowing. It's a state of flow. There's a particular technique that I love to do with my clients, where we fly into the future, especially if you have any worries about what the future might hold or, how to go about things. If you don't know what to do as you're moving forward, I use this one a lot with my entrepreneur clients where it's like, okay, let's go test it out. Let's get a glimpse. Let's watch that preview in your mind of the future and let's let your subconscious mind, let's let your inner being, let's tap into all that is, the energy that just knows. Because remember, these things are already created. The moment we've asked, the universe has delivered. And so when we get in tune with our subconscious mind, we get a glimpse into what that might look like that can help us problem solve where we are here today. I also love to do sessions where I consult your inner advisor. Ooh, I love this one because when we're in that state of hypnosis, we're, all the crinkly distortion and noise of our conscious mind has been completely silenced. And we're just in that deep state of relaxation where we're in touch with the energy of all that is. I mean, that's our intuition. That's our inner advisor. That's our guides, right? That's when we're in touch with these universal forces that are bigger than us, but yet are part of us. And so in a state of hypnosis, we can tap into that part of us, the part of all that is, and we can ask questions and we can ask for advice. And it is some of the most impactful sessions I'll ever conduct with people, is allowing them to get in touch, facilitating that connection between them and their guides, their advisors, to help give them advice on what they should do. I've even had sometimes, which I think is just like, oh, so amazing. I love when this happens, but I've had this happen more than a handful of times where I've conducted these types of, intuition, connection type hypnosis sessions and relatives that have passed away, or animals that have passed away, pets that have passed away, or other people from the other side. We've bridged the veil between our world of effects and what exists at large, the universal energies, wherever that might be. Don't we want to know? Like, I want to just know definitively, but I feel like I do begin to know definitively when I watch my clients just tears streaming down their face, having connected to these loved ones in such a real and visceral way. They'll come out of hypnosis and they'll be like, oh my God, that was so real. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I understand. I've actually done it myself too. Once my aunt who has passed away was very vividly there. I'm going to tear up just thinking about it. She was so vividly there holding what I knew to be my baby. I'm manifesting growing my family. And it was like, she was telling me hey, I'm babysitting her, I got her, you're good. It brings a tear to my eye because it was so real. And just like I talked about last episode, when something in hypnosis feels so real, it's because you're getting a glimpse into what the universe has already created. And we can get in touch with this part of ourselves that allows ourselves to do that. Of course, these are all incredible, amazing things that you could experience in a one-on-one hypnotherapy session when you're guided into that very, very deep place. But even just doing a basic visualization, like in the audio, the manifestation audio that I have for you on my website, BrittanyHoops.com/manifestation audio, even just doing the visualization just within 20 minutes that I offer there can also help you get tuned into that clarity. Another way to use hypnosis and to use your subconscious mind to create your future from the future is to try on future you. And what I mean by that is to use hypnosis to embody your future self. Not only can you use hypnosis to gain clarity on what to do to reach the future, but you need to also feel into what it feels like to be that future version of yourself. And so I do sessions where I help my clients embody the identity of their future self. Again, just like we ask our inner advisors for advice, you can ask future you for advice. Who better to ask than future you for advice? Because she's the version that has this hands down. She lives it every day. And what's so beautiful about that is when you're connected with the subconscious mind, you already have all the answers you need. And so we use all of our senses, our eyes, our sight, our hearing, our taste, our smell, our touch, even just our intuitive feelings and emotions. We use all these senses to really make that manifestation feel so real to you. And even though I call it future you, it's not something that's out there separate from you. What we're doing is we're bringing the future and putting it on, almost like you put on a coat. I want you to put on future you. I want you to embody her right here, right now, so that you're feeling it now. Because that's the key. That's the instructions we want to send your subconscious mind. We want to say, no, this isn't out there in the future somewhere. It is right now. I am feeling it right now. This is something I can embody right now so that you manifest this happening in your now. So it's just kind of like in our last episode, episode 6, you have to sort of acclimate to this future you. It's like putting on a jacket, putting on a new outfit. You really have to kind of try her on. And I like to think of it this way. It's kind of like, have you ever bought a brand new pair of tennis shoes? Maybe they're like a brand new Nikes or New Balance or something. Like they're a good pair of tennis shoes. And you might put them on and you might go for your first walk or your first run and you might actually have blisters. Like you might be like, what the heck? These are new. They should feel better. Sure, they feel more supportive, but like I need to break them in. And that's how it is with your manifestations. You got to put it on and it might not feel comfortable for you. You might not believe it. You might not feel like this is like you're the kind of person that would have this or feel this way or be this way. It might feel a little awkward at first, and that's okay. But the more you wear those tennis shoes, the more you break them in, the more comfortable they feel. And it's the same with embodying that future version of you that has that manifestation. The more you wear and become her in the present, the more comfortable that feels. And so here's one last tip on how you can reverse engineer the future to your now. Look for examples in your life. Okay, if you've never been this way before, if this is brand new to you, but you want to start being this way and having these manifestations, you might not know, especially consciously. Of course, I just gave you a bunch of subconscious activities that you can do, but you might not consciously know the answer. And so hypnosis can help you tap into those answers to those questions that your conscious mind may be blocking from your awareness. But sometimes you just need to learn. It's just a skill to be learned, and that's okay. And so what can be helpful in these instances is to think of someone you know, or even someone in pop culture, maybe you admire, who has or who has done what you want to manifest, and ask yourself, well, what would they do in this situation? You know, it's so funny. I think I've shared with you guys that I think I'm on like week 3 now of really being like gung ho, totally living as future me, like on my health and fitness journey. Right. And so a couple weeks ago, I was doing just this. I was like, okay, to the extent that I want to live out these things, I haven't experienced that yet. And yet I know some people that do. And so when I started this eating healthy and fitness journey to really help sort of balance my hormones, I started to think of some of my super healthy and disciplined friends. You know, these are people that I know, people that I've been around with, that I know what they order at restaurants. I know how they motivate themselves when they're not feeling like going and doing that workout, right? They exude these qualities that I'd like to embody as well. And so whenever I found myself really wanting to skip that workout, I thought about like, well, what would this friend do? Like, what does he do when he's not feeling motivated? What does he do, you know, to stay disciplined? And speaking of this, I want to bring said friend on this podcast in the future, because I think a lot of these things, and that's what's so great about when you know people that exude these qualities or have these things, it's helpful when you know them because you can ask them to shed light into their mindset. That's precisely what I did with my friend. I messaged him. I was like, okay, dude, like I'm trying to do this thing. How do you do it? I see you do it. You have the results that prove it. What's up here? What's happening in your mind when you're not feeling like it? And it's helpful to like basically adopt and put on their mindset for a while if you haven't developed that yourself. It's not mandatory to know the person. You can even just imagine what someone might say or do. If it's somebody in pop culture that you really admire, go read their biography, go and watch their interviews on YouTube, like really get into their mindset. Cause I'm sure there's interviews where they've explained and they've answered these questions of what they do in these instances. And then what do? You just copy it. You just copy it. It's okay. Because here's the thing. It will feel like your actions and your way of being with enough repetition. It doesn't feel like you yet because you haven't done it enough. But anyone who's learning always starts out by copying first. I mean, remember when you were like in kindergarten or first grade, you would trace, right? You learned to write your letters by tracing them. So right now you're tracing future you with these actions. And maybe you have to look towards the actions of others and trace their actions for a while. And you might feel like a little bit of an imposter because you're like, oh, this isn't me. But when you do it enough, it becomes you. There's going to be a time period where you're living in accordance with future you, with who you want to be, with who has your manifestation. And it's not going to feel like you yet. And that's okay. That's part of the process. You're going to feel like an imposter. Or maybe if you're anything like me, I kind of feel like a baby doe, like a little Bambi with these like shaky little legs that I'm like, oh, I'm my future version, but I don't feel solid yet. I don't feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet. I had one of those days a few weeks ago. And at the end of the day, I just kind of sat back and I was like, whew, okay. Wow. Everything I ate, how I moved my body, how I thought, how I showed up in my business, how I showed up in my relationships, everything that was that day was all in alignment with who I want to be. It was a future me day. I lived that future me day, only it wasn't in the future. It was in the present. It was in that day. I was future me in that day. Of course, I felt shaky and I didn't feel like it was very like solidified. I hadn't embodied quite the whole identity of it yet. But the only difference between the future version of me who's got that down pat and the me that experienced that day was just repetition. Because with repetition comes comfort. With repetition becomes identity, comes normality. It becomes your new normal. So instead of feeling like a little shaky Bambi, I could do that day with my eyes closed. Of course, that's just the kind of day I have. I don't consider any other day, right? That's how future me would talk. And the only difference there is repetition. And so if I ate like I did that day, hundreds of days in a row, my hormones would be balanced. I'd be at my ideal body weight. If I worked out like that, hundreds of days in a row, I'd have a rocking body. I'd be very fit. If I showed up like that in my business hundreds of days in a row, I'm raking in millions. If I showed up like that in my personal life hundreds of days in a row, my relationships are stronger than ever. They're blossoming. They're beautiful. The only thing that separates those results from where you are here now and from the future you is just the repetition of them. And you embody it more and more and more with each repetition. Living as future you again and again and again until that just becomes normal, until that's just your life. So here's the crux of all this. And I know I've been saying this throughout, but if you could take away one thing from this episode today, it's this. You gotta be there now. We call it future you because it's the version that we're aspiring to be. It's the version that has the manifestation, but there's nothing future about how you live it. It all happens in the now. Our conscious mind views it as something in the future because our conscious mind is preoccupied with time and space and tries to make sense of things in this way. We know the universe, it's all ever happening in one magnificent, beautiful now. And there's various timelines and we can go into all the quantum physics of that, right? How everything exists all at once. That's why we have to embody it in the now so that the universe can deliver it in the now. Our subconscious needs to experience it now, not the idea of it out there in some nebulous future, but we got to live from it now, living into it, acting as if it's true for you here right now. So in that sense, there's really nothing future about it at all. It's feeling into it now. And that's using your senses. That's using your subconscious mind. That's giving yourself the gift, giving yourself the treat of getting to watch that preview like we talked about last episode. If you view it as the future, it's always going to be there out ahead of you. You're always going to be grasping for it in some moment that will never come. You have to experience it in your now, in the present moment. Even if it feels like pretend, even if you feel shaky with it like a little Bambi, even if it feels like you're putting on someone else's outfit or you're breaking in a pair of shoes, the more you do it, the more real it feels and the more real it becomes in your reality. And so let's practice that a little bit here right now. If it's safe to do so, I really want you just in your mind's eye to visualize future you. Okay? The version of you who has what you want to have, is who you want to be. Just really see, feel, and experience what it's like. to be that person now? What do you see? How do you feel? In fact, I'd like you to look around this space, and I just want you to notice that there's a calendar there. Maybe it's hanging up on a wall. Maybe you glance down at your phone and you see the date, but just take a look at that calendar and notice that, in fact, it's today's date. Yep, that's right. It's today that you're feeling this. Oh, and just feel the relief in that to know it's today. It's now. All of this exists for you here, right now. You are this person now. It's not will it happen. It's happening right now. Feel into how good this feels. Remembering all that had to happen to get to this point. Giving gratitude to all the changes that were made. That strength you developed as you've become this person. You set the dominoes up so beautifully. See, feel, and experience all of this with such clarity. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Feel how it feels to really, truly be there, having manifested this thing. That's right. Notice the people around you. They notice these changes in you too. They see you differently now. This is how they think of you. You feel so solid in all of this, so practiced. This is just your life. It just feels normal to you. It's so solid for you. Just feel into that. That's right. Very, very good. Doesn't it feel good? And that's why I was saying last episode too, in episode 6, like, do this because it just feels good. Like, even if the manifestation never happened, which it will, because this is how the universe works, like, isn't it just fun to do this? Like, I literally think about that. Sometimes I get feeling guilty sometimes for like, do I have any hobbies? I'm like, oh, I should go get a hobby. Like, why don't I have a hobby? And then I'm like, well, manifestation's my hobby. I literally will do hypnotherapy and manifestation coaching all day. And then work is done. And then I eat some dinner. And then I'm like, well, what do I want to do this evening? And I'm like, more manifestation. Like, it's fun. It feels good. It's fun. I get to do it for myself then, which is nice. But like, do it because it feels fun. That's why you're listening to this show. You're an advanced manifester. You're doing this for the fun of it. And that's why the manifestations actually at the end of the day are just kind of the cherry on top. And that's the most beautiful way to view it, because that's when you really usher these things in. So thank you, you advanced manifestors, you travelers. Thank you for joining us here on this journey here today towards destination manifestation. Because guess what? Spoiler alert. The destination is here right now. You're already there. Woo! That's what we're feeling. That's what we're embodying into. And so if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast, because guess what? Next week, we're discussing, what do you do? You know how we were talking about all that repetition, those hundreds of days of doing those actions that lead to those results again and again and again? Like, what do you focus on during that? This is kind of what I'm experiencing right now. So I want to share some tips and tricks that have been helpful for me. But like, it's always fun to like get clear on this and like to dream into it and blah and blah. But then it's like, sometimes it gets a little redundant and gets a little, quote unquote boring, because what do you do in that gap of time while you're waiting for your manifestation to come to fruition? You know what you want. You're clear about that. And now what? Well, we're going to explore all that. If you've ever asked yourself the question, will I be able to keep this progress up? Can I keep up with this? This episode, the next episode, episode 8, right after this one, is going to be for you. And so the one other thing that I'd like you to do after listening to this episode is this. Be sure to share this podcast episode with a friend. I'm sure you know someone right now. I'm sure someone just popped into your mind. Someone who wants to make big changes in their life and they're just like not quite sure how to get there. And they're probably complaining to you about it. Guess what? You can be their hero. You can say, guess what? I have a podcast for that, and send them this episode. This is what me and my girlfriends do all the time. Literally, I'll have a phone date with some of my like most inspirational friends, and it will not have been a normal phone date if we aren't exchanging podcast episodes in some way. So this will literally help them map out the route to their future step by step. So be sure to share the show with them. I hope you're feeling excited. I hope you're feeling ready to step into that future version of you. Because guess what? You don't step into it in the future. You step into it right here, right now, and now you have the tools to do so. All music for this podcast is by AQ. And I'll be sure to catch you next time.